What is down, everybody? Is your main course, Little Pancake, and welcome back to another video. Today, we are going to continue to learn random factoids to insert into conversations to make them awkward. Let's go. That's what we do here, and we love it. Alright? Heck yeah. Anyway, today, we're going to be learning about two things. I know this is crazy. This is groundbreaking. We're learning about two wars. Yes, wars that are anything but conventional. Today we are going to be learning about the War of the Bucket and the Kettle War. Yes, that's right. Two wars about items that can hold things, preferably liquids. I'm excited. I hope you are too. Let's go. So first things first, let's look at the War of the Bucket. All right. Don't ask me what it's about. Probably a bucket. The War of the Bucket, or the War of the Oaken Button. Wow, we're off to a strong start. I can't even read the first sentence. Okay, let's try that again. The War of the Bucket, or the War of the Oaken Bucket. It's very important that it was an oaken bucket. Was fought in 1325 between the rival city-states of Bologna and Modena. It's probably Bologna, but how do you say that? Because it is just Bologna. I'm just gonna say Bologna, to be honest. It took place in the region of Emilia-Romagna in northern Italy. The war was an episode in the over 300-year-long struggle between Guelphs and Ghibellines. Modena won the Battle of Zappolino, the only battle of the war. A common myth surrounding the War of the Bucket is that it was caused by the Modenese stealing a bucket from a Bolognese well. However, that is mostly incorrect, as the bucket was, according to most accounts, taken as a trophy by the Modenese after the war. In fact, war was declared because Modena had captured the Bolognese castle of Montevecchio. Maybe I shouldn't have chosen this one, because holy crap, I can't read. Wait, so did they not even take a bucket? So that was just a myth? Man, that random website that I found that was about odd wars is terrible. Well, I mean, by now we're committed, so it looks like, according to most accurate accounts, the bucket was a trophy, which is still really weird to take a bucket as a trophy. Like, of all the things that you could take, wouldn't have been my first choice, but then again, I wasn't alive in 1325, so maybe times have changed slightly. I doubt it, though. From the late Middle Ages to the Renaissance, northern Italy was divided between factions supporting the rival political claims of the Holy Roman Empire and the Pope. Modena was Ghibelline, which means they support the Holy Roman Empire. Bologna was Guelph, which means they support the Pope. The political difference exacerbated the natural conflicts over border territory. In 1176, Frederick Barbarossa was defeated at the Battle of Legnano by the Lombard League, which supported Pope Alexander III. That was the start of a protracted period of conflict in medieval Italy between the Guelphs and the Ghibellines. The two opposing factions started war against each other. The town of Modena was a staunch supporter of the Holy Roman Empire and pledged to be a Ghibelline city. The northern city of Bologna was a Guelph city and was led by the popes because it supported them. Interesting. So, as majority of conflicts throughout history, it was about religion. Everybody love everybody, except if they don't love our version of God. Then we must slaughter them brutally. In 1296, Bologna seized Bazzano and Savigno from Modena. Pope Boniface VIII confirmed Bologna's title the same year. Azzo VIII d'Este, Marquis of Ferrara, controlled Modena from 1293 to 1308 and confronted Bologna partly to bolster his lukewarm support among Modena's nobles. His elected successor, the Mantuan Passerino Bonacolsi. Dude, French people need to chill out with the names. Alright, let's take a step back, take a breath, and think before we name our children, okay? Thank you. Was an agent of Emperor Louis IV of Bavaria. He continued the Ghibelline War policy with Parma and Reggio, Parmigiano Reggiano. That's gotta be there has to be some kind of a connection there, right? Has to be. Pope John the XII declared Bonascolsi a rebel against the church and granted indulgences as befit a crusader to any who could harm his person or his possessions. So they just put out a hit against my guy Bonascolsi. Rude. In the months before the battle, border clashes intensified. In July, the Bolognese entered the Modenese territory and laid waste to the fields in the section between the canals by fire and sword. In August, a Bolognese rabble, headed by their podesta, who spent weeks ravaging other lands of Modena. In September, Mantua took its turn, and at the end of that month, the strategic Bolognese Rocca of Monteviglio was betrayed by Modena by malcontents. 2 renegade Castellans were decapitated. Decapitation's pretty cool if they deserve it, not just like anybody, you know. I don't know. I wasn't there. I can't say on whether these guys deserved it or not, but the Battle of Zappolino. After bologna mustard. Bologna mustard. An army of 32,000 men and marched against Modena in November. 7,000 Modenese under Bonascolsi met them at Zappolino in Bolognese territory. The Bolognese were routed and fled into the walls of their city. About 2,000 men were killed on both sides. Some accounts state that the Modenese took a bucket from a well just outside a city gate as a trophy. I don't buy it. Here's my theory. I think that, yeah, there was tension and whatnot. They were just kind of checking out. They were on vacation. They were checking out the city. They were hanging out. Yes, they looked like an army, but they were really just a very large tourist group. Just checking out the city. Yeah, they were like, you know, let's put our differences aside. Let's appreciate the beauty of each other's culture. And it was really beautiful. It was really heart-wrenching, truly. And one of them stole a bucket, and it cascaded downward. That's my theory. After the war, Ghibelline power had arisen once again, but the wars were not over. In 1447, the Ghibellinese encountered failure when the Ambrosian Republic was created and broke down. The wars of the Guelphs and Ghibellines continued until 1529, when Charles I of Spain seized imperial power in Italy during the Italian Wars. Faced with the threat of a foreign invasion, both factions made peace with each other. In 17th century Italian poet Alessandro Tassoni composed the mock-heroic epic La Secchia Rapita on the events of the War of the Bucket. Well, that's something. That's interesting. Kind of disappointing that the bucket wasn't more of a focal point. Also kind of disappointing I had to pronounce all those French names. That was obscenely difficult. And now we have the Kettle War. Hopefully this one's actually about a kettle. I don't know. The Kettle War was a military confrontation between the troops of the Holy Roman Empire and the Republic of the Seven Netherlands on October 8th, 1784. It was named the Kettle War because the only shot fired hit a soup kettle. Okay, so nobody died in this one. But here we are with the Holy Roman Empire again. They seem to be, like, kind of a problem. Not to be controversial, but, I mean, in this small sample size, they are 100% involved in every war that we've talked about. So, coincidence? After the Dutch revolt, the northern Netherlands formed their own republic, while the southern Netherlands remained with Spain. Since 1585, the northern Netherlands had closed off the Scheldt so that the harbors of Antwerp and Ghent could not be reached by trade ships, and this remained so after the revolt. This gave an enormous impulse to the economy of the northern Netherlands, namely Amsterdam. But the southern cities were dislodged from their important trading positions. The closure of the Scheldt was confirmed by the Peace of Westphalia in 1648, to which the Spanish agreed. After the War of the Spanish Succession, the Spanish Netherlands had been ceded to Austria by the Treaty of Versailles. Okay, so the Netherlands kind of getting tossed around here. They're kind of getting manhandled, per se. Since Europe's diplomatic revolution of 1756, Austria, and thus the Austria-Netherlands, had been in an alliance with France, Prussia, France's former ally, entered into the alliance with Britain. The change, sensational at the time, made nonsense of all the strategic assumptions and plans current since 1713, based on the premises that the southern Netherlands would serve as a barrier between the Republic of France and that the Republic's security depended on close ties with Austria and Britain. It was a shift which undoubtedly made it ever more attractive for the Dutch to remain neutral in any conflicts between both Britain and France and Austria and Prussia. Well, you know, there's that. War. Here we go. Now we're in the juicy bits. In 1784, Joseph II, Holy Roman Emperor, taking advantage of the ongoing Fourth Anglo-Dutch War, demanded the final dismantling of the barrier system, and in 1784 he demanded the return of territory in the Overmaas and States Flanders, as well as the Dutch evacuation of Maastricht and the reopening of the Scheldt. This happened shortly after the Treaty of Paris. Although the Habsburg army in that region was not equipped very well, and the lack of artillery and supply, the emperor decided to threaten war with the Dutch, convinced that the Netherlands would not dare react. Joseph II had 3 ships, including the merchant ship Lee Louis, with the emperor's flag, sail from Antwerp from the Scheldt. Okay, so Holy Roman Empire is the protagonist or antagonist of this story. They call them Kingsford because they finna start something. You know what I mean? That was pretty bad, Chip. We're gonna move on from that. On October 9th, 1784, as a letter to Benjamin Franklin asserts, the war seemed inevitable. Where'd Benny Franklin come from? What's he doing here? That day, the Dutch ship, the Dolphin, was set out to intercept the imperial ships. After only one shot, which hit a kettle, Le Louis surrendered. On October 30th, the emperor declared war. On November 18th, the states of Holland reacted. The Count of Salm was asked to form a small army. The patriots used the incident for political propaganda and organized the holy crap Exercitiegenutschapten. Y'all gotta chill out over in Europe, dude. I mean, come on. Militia all over the country. The Admiralty of Friesland offered 2 new warships, but they were unable to leave the port of Harlingen and were dismantled. According to the annual register for the year, 1784 to 85, Dolphin would have needed a full broadside of 7 guns to stop Le Louis. Austrian forces invaded Dutch territory, raised a customs station, and strongly occupied the old Fort Lillo, at the time used as a vegetable garden. Well, that's rude. Just come in and take someone's vegetable garden, be like, this is mine now, respect me, or die. Like, bro, I'm just trying to grow tomatoes. I'm just out here with my cucumbers, and my potatoes, and my beets, my green beans, just like, come on, dude. Can we take a breath? You're so aggressive. The garrison of Lillo broke the dikes, inundating a large area and drowning many people. A dike is a dam, basically. On February 13th, 1785, the Dutch ambassador Van Berkel wrote an extended letter to John Jay, in which he explained the situation. See, that's my kind of name right there. John Jay. Simple, short, an American statesman. Frickin' Europe has Exercitiegenutschapten. 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 I'm going mad. Aftermath. So what happened to this kettle? That's what I want. That's what I'm really worried about. Like, is the kettle okay? As a consequence of this short skirmish, and under the mediation of France, negotiations were reopened between the countries. This led in 1785 to the Treaty of Fontainebleau. Again with the frickin' names. Guys, come on. Chill out. Think about what you're doing before you do it. It was decided that the Scheldt would remain closed to shipping, but that the southern Netherlands would be compensated for this by the Republic. At a rough estimate, the Republic paid 2 million guilder, according to other sources 10 million guilder. Much later on, definitive agreements were made between Belgium and the Netherlands about accessing the Scheldt. The war contributed to the decline and fall of Duke Louis Ernest of Brunswick-Lunenburg, advisor to the Dutch stadtholder, who was accused of favoring the enemy due to his familial ties to Joseph. I am out of breath from reading all of this stuff. Basically, the only thing I've truly grasped from this, like I've truly, now, you know, there was a war fought, and the only victim was a kettle. I hope the kettle had a good send-off, though. You know, I hope they really treated the kettle well. You know, had a nice funeral for it. I hope the kettle's family recovered. You know, that's a tough loss. But yeah, basically the Holy Roman Empire are just like bullies, I think, is what I've figured out. And the bucket, like, where's the bucket now? Is it in a museum? I sure hope so. Hopefully you found some enjoyment in this video today. Hopefully you learned something about the War of the Bucket and the Kettle War, and how difficult it is to pronounce anything in Europe. Gosh, French people make me mad sometimes. I don't even know any French people, but if I did, I bet they would make me mad. Yeah, like I said, hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you can utilize some of this information. Thank you so much for watching. Smash like, subscribe if you haven't already, and have an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Make someone else's day better if you can, and I will see all y'all later.